Welcome, curious minds, to the deep dive. Today we are strapping in for what is less a deep dive and more a terrifying plunge into the deepest, darkest corners of the supernatural political world. All through the eyes of one incredibly unlucky telepathic waitress in Louisiana.
It's a classic case where personal life just explodes into international, immortal politics. I mean, the sources we have for this deep dive, they all focus on one single critical moment. Sookie Stackhouse's mandated trip to New Orleans to handle the estate of her deceased cousin Hadley.
Right, and what should have been, a simple bureaucratic formality.
Yeah, sign some papers, get the keys.
Exactly. Instead, it turns out to be the tripwire for uncovering a massive conspiracy that goes all the way up to the Louisiana vampire monarchy.
Absolutely. The tension is just incredible because this journey, it forces Sookie to confront the deepest secrets of her own life. You're talking about her shifting romantic alliances, the identity of these powerful enemies who are actively targeting her, and maybe most devastatingly, the biological truth about her own heritage.
So our mission today is to analyze how all these factors, there were tensions, the demonic logistics, the vampire coup d'etat, how they all intersect at Hadley's apartment.
We really need to unpack the motivations of the key players here, from, the desperate ex-vampire to the calculating queen, and just understand the full scope of the danger Sookie is now permanently living with. This isn't just about plot, it's about the utility of information in a world that is defined by secrecy.
Okay, let's unpack this landscape, and we have to start with the only place Sookie feels remotely normal, her job.
Merlot's. Sam Merlot's bar. It really is the geographical and social nexus for Bon Temps. For Sookie, it's not just where she earns a living, it's where the human world and the increasingly chaotic supernatural world are constantly bumping elbows.
And we have to remember who Sam is, because it really matters to the hierarchy of this world. Sam is what's called a true shapeshifter. He can change into anything, a dog, a bird, whatever he chooses, though he seems to favor a collie.
And that sets him fundamentally apart from the weres like werewolves or were-tigers, who can only shift into one specific animal form. Sam's versatility is a mark of his power, but Sookie trusts him implicitly. He's her boss and one of the few stable allies she has left in her life.
Which is exactly why the introduction of the new barmaid, Tanya, is so deeply unsettling for her. Tanya is described as incredibly efficient. She's constantly smiling. Sam is just thrilled with her work. But Sookie feels this immediate, profound sense of distrust.
And that distrust stems entirely from Sookie's telepathy, or I should say, the lack of it. Sookie cannot read Tanya's mind at all. It's a closed book. She just catches a word here, a flash of a concept there, like a radio station fading in and out on a long drive.
And that ability to completely shield one's mind is a hallmark of a high-level supernatural, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's likely a shifter, someone who has either practiced immense discipline or who just possesses a rare biological immunity to telepathy. Sookie finds this disturbing, and rightly so.
But wait, if Sam is a true shifter and this genuine ally, why hasn't he offered Sookie any context here? Why didn't he just say, hey, Sookie, Tanya is also a shifter, and she's extremely private, so, don't try to read her. His silence is actually a huge point of tension.
It is. It forces Sookie to operate under the assumption that Tanya is a spy, regardless of how friendly she seems. It highlights how pervasive and, necessary secrecy is, even within a supposedly close-knit environment like Merlot's.
So Sookie has to actively police her own thoughts and smile just as brightly as Tanya, trying to project this sense of normalcy, all while she's convinced she's working beside someone who is actively protecting dangerous secrets.
Secrets that, as we find out later, are directly linked to the conspiracy targeting Sookie. This low-key professional paranoia is just the constant background noise of her life now.
And if the tension at Merlot's is bad, it's nothing compared to what Sookie's dealing with socially and emotionally. Let's talk about the Debbie Pelt problem, which is still very much an open wound.
The fallout from the fatal shooting of Debbie Pelt, who was a werewolf, it continues to haunt Sookie. We learn that Maria Starr Cooper, who is Alcide Herveau's current girlfriend, she confirms the Pelt family is still obsessively, relentlessly searching for their vanished daughter.
And Maria Starr, she's basically representing the broader Werg community here, and she's satisfied with the general narrative. Debbie likely ran off, was abducted, or committed suicide. They even think the detectives hired by the Pelts have given up, assuming they were just fleecing the grieving family for money.
Which creates this constant, profound, moral tightrope walk for Sookie. She knows the absolute truth. She shot Debbie dead in January. And this fact is the dark secret that drove the ultimate wedge between her and Alcide.
The emotional toll here must be immense. She has committed a justifiable homicide to save her own life, but she cannot confess it. If she does, she risks everything, including her brother Jason. She has to just swallow her guilt and anxiety every single time someone mentions Debbie's name.
Even as the Pelts are described as savage and obsessed in their search. And that search isn't theoretical, is it?
No, not at all. The Pelts show up desperate and unhinged, even trying to ambush Sookie through a local priest. It just confirms that the danger is immediate and personal. Sookie may have made peace with the act of killing, but the threat from the family seeking vengeance has not lessened one bit.
Given this constant state of danger, it's understandable that Sookie's romantic landscape is in flux. And then enter Quinn, the were-tiger.
He is physically formidable.
Yeah.
Tall, wide, and just clearly a creature of immense power. He's also highly successful working as a partner in special events for a firm with the deliciously dramatic name Iiki.
Extremely elegant events. I love that. It just screams supernatural wealth and influence. And Quinn first met Sookie during a Packmaster contest, so he's already aware of her unique place in this world.
So when he shows up at Merlitz, it's a power move. Sookie, reading his closely guarded shifter mind, another reminder of the specialized nature of these beings, she perceives this palpable, immediate admiration.
And he doesn't waste any time. He immediately composes a formal date. Dinner and a play in Shreveport.
The logistics of dating a soup in this world are always so fascinating. Quinn lives outside Memphis and travels extensively for his high-end events, often staying in guest houses owned by other shifters in cities like Shreveport.
Which signals immediately that Quinn represents a sophisticated, non-local option, but one that is inherently long-distance and complicated by his highly mobile career.
This gives us a great moment to analyze the hierarchy of shifters, which is vital for understanding Quinn's status.
Right.
We've talked about Sam, the versatile true shifter. Quinn is a were-tiger, meaning he only transforms into that one animal.
And the sources make it clear that werewolves, or weres, they view themselves as superior, tougher, with a richer culture compared to the were-tigers and other one-animal shifters.
So Quinn is powerful, wealthy, and attractive, but he exists in a kind of secondary social tier within the shifter world, which adds this interesting layer of depth to his motivation for pursuing Sookie,
And then we have to pivot to the past, to the exes, starting with Bill Compton. Sookie's vampire ex, Bill, he attempts to re-enter her life under the guise of protection, offering to travel with her to New Orleans to handle Hadley's estate.
And we see a significant change in Bill here. He's become this computer geek workaholic, which Sookie notes is a very strange obsession for an ancient being.
Yeah, but I have to ask, is Bill's current desperation genuine emotion, or is it residual programming? Sookie still feels that little flicker of peace and attraction when she's near him, which is why she allows him to accompany her. She even catches herself resting her head in his lap during the limo ride.
But she also sees the look of sheer desperation on his face.
And that ambiguity is Bill's curse, and it's Sookie's source of lasting pain. He was initially sent into her life by the Queen to investigate her telepathy. So even if his feelings became real, as he claims, the entire foundation was deception. Sookie is just heavily guarded because she knows Bill is capable of profound, calculated deceit.
And if Bill is desperate, Eric Northman is all about cold, hard leverage. Bill's boss and the Area 5 sheriff, Eric, he immediately injects command into the situation. He demands Sookie come to Shreveport to discuss the upcoming vampire conference.
It's classic Eric, treating Sookie as a useful tool rather than a person. And this is where Sookie's growing independence really shines. Eric uses his second-in-command, Pam, to issue the order.
But Sookie refuses. She protests Eric's lofty attitude and refers to Pam as a mere flunky. This refusal to play their game is a direct challenge to the ancient vampire's authority.
Which forces Eric to show up at her house, furious, and he's exhibiting that pronounced, almost Viking-era accent that only surfaces when he is truly angry and trying to exert raw power.
The ensuing conflict is pure theater. Eric claims Sookie is obliged to attend the conference. He insists she is in my retinue, referencing their past intimate relationship and his previous financial assistance. He's arguing his property rights over her time and talent.
But Sookie's counter-argument is just lethal. She hits him right on the nose. He only cares because she is valuable to his queen. She points out that their previous relationship, the one that occurred while he had amnesia and was emotionally vulnerable, it means absolutely nothing now that he's got his memory back and has avoided her for months.
She's essentially telling him, you only value my utility, not my person.
What?
And what's fascinating here is the timing. This intense standoff is broken by the arrival of Quinn in his luxurious Lincoln Continental, coming to pick Sookie up for their date.
It instantly turns a power struggle into a supremely awkward triangular romantic confrontation.
It's the perfect scene to summarize Sookie's current life, isn't it? You have Bill, the deceitful ex, offering hollow protection, Eric, the ancient Viking, demanding submission based on political leverage, and then Quinn, the new weretiger, who is polite, respectful of her autonomy, and clearly powerful enough to offer real protection.
A quality immediately tested when they are ambushed in Shreveport by were assailants hired by the Pelts. That ambush, which we learned about earlier, confirms that choosing Quinn wasn't just a romantic decision, it was a pragmatic one.
Yeah, Quinn demonstrates ferocity and commitment. He strikes an attacker so hard he sends him flying, even while dealing with a second wearer leaping on his back. In this world, the person who can protect you and who respects your boundaries quickly becomes the most appealing option.
This deep dive gives us such rich detail on the social and biological rules that govern the supernatural world, rules that Sookie is increasingly forced to navigate. Let's start by really dissecting the were community.
The complexity of the were community, particularly the were-panthers, is just crucial here. And Sookie's brother, Jason, is right at the center of this. He's a were-panther hybrid, which means he was bitten, not born. And this results in an incomplete, partial change.
Right, he doesn't achieve full panther form, which was initially a source of immense frustration and a feeling of inadequacy for him. And now he's dating Crystal, a full were-panther from the fiercely secretive hotshot community, which operates under the leadership of her uncle Calvin Norris.
And that community secrecy and its rigid rules, they seem to stem directly from biological necessity.
That necessity is reproduction. The sources heavily emphasize the intense pressure on weres to maintain or increase their numbers. They have a low birth rate and high infant mortality compared to humans. The biological rule is strict. Only the first child of a pure were couple will be a full were.
And subsequent children revert to human or hybrid status, if they survive at all. This pressure just dictates their entire culture.
And this intense survival drive, it manifests in the relationships. This is why Calvin Norris, the pack leader, openly confesses his interest in Sookie. It's not necessarily romance, it's pragmatic, survival-driven custom. Pack leaders, especially if the pack is shrinking, must sometimes court human women to maintain pack size.
And Sookie's response to Calvin's interest is one of the most candid moments in the sources. She declines, explaining she is too human to deal with the unavoidable reality of the wearer's social structure, which includes a history of outside children and a sexual culture dictated by the pack leader's duty, not fidelity.
It's a harsh realization, isn't it? That the duty to the pack just overrides personal feelings and monogamy.
This structural pressure leads directly to Jason and Crystal's personal crisis. Crystal suffers her second miscarriage, the second time she's lost a baby, one by a full-blood wearer, and now one by Jason. And this leaves her dangerously ill.
And the crisis is compounded by secrecy. Crystal refuses human doctors out of the ingrained fear that a human physician would notice her fast healing abilities, thus exposing the entire hotshot community. They have to rely on their parallel, specialized infrastructure.
Which brings in one of the most eccentric characters in the supernatural medical world, Dr. Ludwig.
Dr. Ludwig. She's described as a very short, non-human doctor with non-regular features. She's not human, but she specializes in treating supernaturals. She previously treated Sookie after a Minad attack, so she is well-versed in complex non-human trauma.
Sookie, recognizing the severity of the situation and the impossibility of taking Crystal to a standard hospital, calls Dr. Ludwig for a house call. Dr. Ludwig, despite her gruff exterior, agrees to treat Crystal at Jason's house, confirming that Jason, as the responsible party, will pay her exorbitant fees.
This whole sequence just highlights the elaborate, highly functional, yet deeply hidden support system the supernatural community has built to circumvent human scrutiny.
So moving from the corporeal wares to the more ethereal, we gain fascinating clarity on the taxonomy of fairies and demons, largely through Sookie's interactions with her fairy godmother, Claudine.
Claudine is actually working toward a kind of career advancement. She's hoping to be promoted to an angel based on good citizenship, but in her explanation of the hierarchy, she provides a foundational piece of world-building lore.
She confirms that fairies are the basic supernatural being. They are the primordial source from which all the recognizable specialized variants, elves and brownies and angels and demons, originate.
Yeah, they exist alongside more natural spirits like water sprites and green men, suggesting that the fairy lineage is the fundamental root of all non-human magical existence.
And what's fascinating is how this ethereal lineage is tied directly to the cold, hard reality of vampire politics. Mr. Cataliades, the queen's lawyer, is mostly demon. His half-brother, Nergal, is a full demon.
And Nurgle has half-human children, including Gladiola and Diantha, who serve as essential, magically shielded messengers for the Queen's court.
Which brings us to a deeply morbid but essential piece of physiological lore. Cataliades confirms that demons and half-demons, unlike mammalian shifters or even the undead vampires, do not rot or decompose when they die.
He states, "No one will eat a demon. The ground will not digest her."
That detail isn't just a fun fact, is it? It dictates the entire disposal protocol. When Gladiola is murdered, they can't just bury her. They must burn the body completely on Sookie's gravel parking area.
It's a macabre necessity derived from their non-mammalian, almost geological biology. It shows you the sheer logistics required just to cover up a homicide when dealing with these powerful beings.
But the single most impactful biological revelation is intensely personal for Sookie. It happens in New Orleans immediately after she is bitten by the newly turned vampire. Andre, the queen's fierce bodyguard, tastes her blood from the wound and detects a little streak of fairy.
This is the massive aha moment. It recontextualizes her entire adult life. It explains everything she has experienced that she couldn't rationalize before.
Andre explains that this heritage, perhaps inherited from a Fey ancestor, is the literal biological source of the strong, almost irresistible sexual attraction. Sookie generates in supernaturals, vampires, werewolves, shifters, the whole gamut. Her blood is an intoxicating lure.
Which is devastating. Sookie immediately makes the connection. This explains why Eric Northman, who is thousands of years old and rarely shows emotion, was so completely and openly obsessed with her during his bout of amnesia. It wasn't her personality or her kindness, it was the irresistible nature of her blood. The sources make a point of noting that this realization makes her genuinely sad.
It's a profound blow to her self-worth and autonomy. For years, she struggled to reconcile why these ancient, powerful beings were so drawn to her, a simple waitress. Now she realizes her primary value to them might be entirely biological. She's a source of potent magnetic energy.
It strips away the illusion of genuine connection and makes her feel like valuable property, not a cherished individual.
And it also confirms that her brother, Jason, is affected by this lineage, even if he doesn't know it yet. It changes their place in the world from human anomalies to specific, rare, and highly valuable supernatural variants.
A status that comes with both power and constant targeted danger. Her unique position isn't a superpower, it's a vulnerability. It's a beacon signaling her presence to every powerful supernatural being in the region.
So, the New Orleans mission, it starts innocently enough. Sookie's late cousin Hadley, who was a favorite of the Louisiana Queen Sophie Anne, left Sookie her apartment. The queen has been graciously paying the rent to keep it preserved for the heir.
But the mission is very quickly complicated by violence. Mr. Cataliades arrives late to deliver the necessary, magically sealed letter about the estate. He explains that his messenger, Gladiola, one of the demon-human hybrids, was killed 4 nights prior near Sookie's house while carrying the letter.
And Sookie immediately connects this to an event she vaguely recalls. The surrounding woods went completely silent that night. An unnatural, eerie hush that suggested something profoundly powerful and frightening was happening nearby.
The investigation proceeds using the specific abilities of the demon lineage. Diantha, Gladiola's sister, uses her specialized senses to locate the body near Sookie's woodshed. And the cause of death is shocking. Gladiola was cut in 2 at the waist by something real strong and sneaky.
This wasn't a casual attack. This was a clean, professional, powerful hit designed to delay the message and stop Sookie from gaining crucial information.
And as we discussed, the consequence of Gladiola's biology is the necessary burning of the corpse on the gravel driveway, a violent, ritualistic necessity performed right at Sookie's home. It confirms that the conspiracy has officially reached her doorstep.
The journey to New Orleans in Mr. Cataliades' luxurious limo, which is stocked not only with synthetic blood for the vampires, but also water and Cheetos for the human guests, is incredibly tense. Sookie's accompanied by a desperate-looking Bill.
And Sookie uses this time to drop a massive piece of intelligence. She reveals her recent ambush in Shreveport by the were assailants hired by the Pelts. This confirmation that she is being actively, violently targeted by multiple factions simultaneously just violently shocks both Bill and Cataliades.
Yeah, it confirms that this estate trip is not safe, but a trap.
Upon arrival at the apartment building, Sookie meets Amelia Broadway, the witch who lives downstairs and owns the building. And Amelia is not just a quirky resident, she is a powerful, practicing witch who performs specialized magic for supernaturals.
Wares and vampires in particular, she also runs magic tours for income.
And Amelia set a highly specific, powerful stasis spell on Hadley's apartment after Hadley's death. This spell was intended to keep everything perfectly intact, preventing any decay or disruption until the heir arrived. And this spell is the key because it inadvertently created an unprecedented biological phenomenon.
While Sookie sorts through Hadley's belongings, a collection of dark, dramatic clothes that Sookie plans to donate, noting that Hadley was slightly smaller than her, the stasis spell begins to fail, and the true horror of the apartment is revealed.
The first shock is a hamper full of towels stained with dried, months-old blood. As the stasis spell dissipates, the blood begins to smell strongly of decay. This immediately signals a large-scale violent event took place here.
And the second and far more dangerous shock is the discovery of the body of a young man, Jake Purifoy, hidden in the hall walk-in closet. Amelia recognizes him as a wearer who did security work for the Queen's wedding.
And this is where the world building and the plot collide with terrifying results. Amelia realizes the stasis spell had kept Jake Purifoy's body in a state of suspended animation. It prevented his transition into undeath for months. And because he was aware, with that massive neck wound, he was basically preserved right on the brink of turning.
The sources confirm this is unprecedented in vampire lore. A new vampire, a newborn, usually rises within hours of turning, or not at all. But Jake, a wearer, was preserved in this turning state for months by the stasis magic.
So as the spell fully fails, Jake awakens instantly as a newborn vampire, and he is experiencing fierce, primal hunger. He attacks Sookie and Amelia. Jake bites Sookie's arm and then lunges for her neck.
Amelia, despite the immediate danger, manages to call vampire authorities just as the newborn is struggling against his new, unfamiliar state.
Vampire police arrive and subdue the new vampire, which is an incredibly dangerous feat. Sookie, bruised and bitten, is rushed to the hospital. But instead of feeling cared for, she feels like a political nuisance.
Oh yeah, she is absolutely furious with Bill and Eric for their perceived manipulations and their utter failure to provide the true moral support she needed when she was almost killed.
So she flees the hospital, very Sookie move, and is later treated by Claudine, her fairy godmother. This incident leaves her resolved. She has to find out why Jake Purifoy was in that closet and why Hadley was involved.
To unlock the final puzzle, Sookie agrees to participate in a sophisticated and rare magical procedure, ectoplasmic reconstruction.
This is not simple parlor trickery. This requires serious, expensive magical power involving the Queen, her staff, Amelia, and 3 other practicing witches, Bob, Patsy, and Terry.
This procedure allows them to use ectoplasmic projection magic to visually witness the events that transpired in the apartment immediately before Hadley's death. It's like watching a magical, 3-dimensional security tape.
The visual evidence is stunning and provides the crucial missing links. They see Hadley reject an invitation from Waldo, the vampire who ultimately kills her, confirming Waldo's initial motive was professional resentment.
Then they watch Jake Purifoy arrive later, make a phone call, leave a voicemail, and then get violently attacked, though the identity of the attacker remains obscured in the projection.
But the reconstruction also reveals the extent of Hadley's desperation and, well, her love for the Queen. They witness Hadley returning to the apartment, finding Jake's body with that massive neck wound, and taking the desperate action to turn him into a vampire.
She's attempting to save his life, despite his war status.
She then wraps his neck, stows him in the closet to hide the evidence and protect him, and, critically, she disposes of his bloody clothes. But she forgets the telltale bloody towel in the hamper. Only after securing Jake does she contact Waldo, agreeing to the meeting that leads directly to her own death. Hadley's final hours were an act of selfless, though reckless, protection.
With this new context, Sookie shifts into full detective mode, using her intellect to connect the political conspiracy. She connects the recent violence against her, the Pelts, who hired war attackers who later died in jail, to the much larger royal intrigue.
Sookie's deduction process is brilliant. She starts with the highest level of intrigue, the Queen's new aggressive husband, Peter Threadgill. She deduces that Threadgill must have been spying on the Queen and discovered that Hadley possessed a vital piece of property, the Queen's missing diamond bracelet.
A gift from Threadgill that Hadley had been entrusted to hide. The bracelet was actually hidden cleverly in a sealed coffee can, which Sookie notes. And this is the motive. The conspirators needed to silence Hadley and prevent Sookie from gaining control of the estate.
And Sookie realizes that Jade Flower, Threadgill's formidable bodyguard, was the real strong and sneaky killer who murdered Gladiola to delay Sookie from getting the message about the estate.
And she doesn't just theorize this. She confirms it. Sookie calls multiple gas stations and, through painstaking effort, finds a witness who saw a jade flower near her house around the exact time of Gladiola's murder.
This is the moment Sookie moves from being a reactive victim to an active, formidable detective who uses her civilian connections to outsmart ancient, powerful conspirators.
So Sookie is now fully aware she is walking into a trap, or at least a highly volatile situation. She visits the Queen's fortified New Orleans monastery for a conference party that is essentially a political showdown.
And the tension is palpable. The sources sharply contrast the Queen's loyal guards, Rasul, Sigbert, Wybert, and the utterly devoted Andre, with King Peter Threadgill's faction of flashy, badly dressed Arkansas vampires.
Including dreadlocks and the killer, Jade Flower, this is a clash of cultures and political ambition.
Security is extreme, featuring a mandatory purse search. And this is where Sookie's resourcefulness becomes tactical genius. She realizes the searchers are looking for that specific diamond bracelet, so she separates the components.
She hides the bracelet band under a bandage on her arm, blending it with a minor injury. And here's the stroke of brilliance. She pries out the diamond and hides it inside a rigid plastic tampon applicator.
Counting on the fact that the vampire searcher who hasn't menstruated in centuries will completely overlook the item or just fail to understand its purpose.
Seriously, that is the most brilliant tactical move. I love how specifically tailored that security blind spot is. She weaponizes the vampire's historical ignorance.
She uses the party as her moment of truth. Amidst the chaos and the tense socializing, Sookie subtly slips the bracelet back onto the Queen's wrist, confirming the transfer of ownership.
And the moment the Queen receives her property, the signal for the coup d'etat is given. Dreadlocks, one of Threadgill's key men, instantly decapitates Wybert, one of the Queen's loyal guards. Mass fighting breaks out immediately.
Yeah, the monastery party just turns into an outright civil war. Sookie finds the Queen badly wounded in her bedroom, facing down her treacherous husband, Threadgill. It's a moment of utter vulnerability for the monarch.
But Andre, demonstrating his utter devotion, intervenes by shooting Threadgill twice in the face, stopping the coup's leader. Sookie, despite her exhaustion, unlocks the back door, creating the necessary escape route.
In this moment of shared danger, the Queen offers Sookie a crucial piece of personal context. She confirms she initially sent Bill to investigate Sookie's telepathic abilities for her own political use, but she also explains that Hadley was genuinely dear to her.
Because both women shared a history of being molested Hadley by her great-uncle, and the Queen by a human centuries ago before she was turned.
And this elevates the relationship from purely political to deeply emotional, rooted in shared trauma. Andre's fierce loyalty is also clarified. The Queen rescued him from a forced, abusive existence imposed by his own maker. These bonds are far deeper than mere political allegiance.
The escape scene is chaotic and dramatic, confirming Quinn's role as the ultimate protector. Quinn transforms into his full, terrifying were-tiger form, 7 foot long, weighing 450 pounds of pure muscle, and helps Sookie escape over the fortress's razor-wired wall.
Andre, despite the chaos, manages to clear the wire by sacrificing his torn coat, lifting the gravely wounded Queen to safety, demonstrating that deep, almost suicidal devotion. They escape the compound, having successfully thwarted the coup.
The source material provides a crucial non-linear flashback. Sookie and Quinn confront the Peltz Barbara Gordon and their daughter Sandra, and their hired winders who had previously kidnapped them. This is Sookie cleaning up her personal threats.
The Peltz admit to paying the Wares and a human associate to abduct and torture Sookie to get information about Debbie's disappearance. Eric, drawn by the fairy blood commotion and the sheer volume of violence, arrives.
And Sookie, backed by Quinn and Eric's implied threat, extracts a promise of silence from the Peltz, warning them that both she and Eric will be watching them closely.
And this confrontation reveals a final, small piece of the earlier puzzle. Sookie confirms that Tanya, the constantly smiling new waitress at Merlitz, was indeed a spy for the Peltz, which explains her closed mind and Sookie's initial visceral distrust. She's finally justified in her paranoia.
So the book concludes with a series of necessary resolutions. The Queen, grateful for Sookie's intervention and the recovery of the diamond, promises Sookie substantial payment and assistance with moving Hadley's possessions back to Bon Temps.
And Sookie gains a new, somewhat eccentric roommate, Amelia the Witch. Amelia asks to stay with Sookie temporarily because her attempt at a romantic relationship with Bob, the specialized witch, didn't work out.
It's a very modern, non-magical reason for needing a couch, which gives Sookie a new, powerful, and entertaining friend.
And finally, the ultimate reckoning with Bill. He appears, confessing that his love for her, despite the Queen's orders, became real. He begs for reconciliation. But Sookie, having gone through absolute hell and having processed the devastating truth about the fairy blood, she tells him his words are not a magical formula that can instantly open her guarded heart.
She is left to contemplate her new, incredibly complicated reality. A powerful weretiger boyfriend who respects her boundaries, a practicing witch roommate, a huge political payment coming her way, and the terrifying confirmed presence of fairy blood is the true, dangerous source of her magnetic attraction to all things supernatural. She is no longer just a waitress, she is a political asset and a biological lure.
So if we synthesize this entire deep dive, the overarching theme isn't just survival, it's the relationship between autonomy and utility in a world where information is power. Sookie's key personal discovery, her fairy blood, it explains her value, but simultaneously devastates her sense of self. It tells her that the magnetic pull she felt from Eric and Bill was a biological lure, not a recognition of her personality.
And that distinction, the difference between being loved and being valuable, that is the critical takeaway. She traded her old, manipulative vampire relationships for a direct, powerful weretiger who makes her feel protected and respected. But she has also gone from a local asset to a national political player.
Absolutely. She has successfully leveraged her intellect and her unique telepathy to survive, but the danger level has just skyrocketed. The story powerfully demonstrates how deep personal secrets, like the shared history of trauma between Hadley and the Queen, or Sookie's hidden bloodline can, when exposed, destabilize entire political systems.
Leading to assassinations, specialized magic rituals, and outright war. Being in the know is the only path to survival, but the risk of that knowledge is constantly immense.
And on a final, deeply specific thought revealed in the lore of this world, we learn that vampires cannot leave ghosts behind. This detail raises a fascinating, provocative question for you, the learner, as you navigate your own well-informed world.
If a vampire is already considered dead, and their physical form is non-human, does that fundamentally change the metaphysics of the afterlife? I mean, does their specific state of undeath preclude the necessary components for haunting? Or perhaps they're simply too busy recovering from coups and maintaining their territories to bother with the spectral concerns of the living. Something to consider as you dive into your next world of discovery.